and welcome to Resilience at Work. And I'm really thrilled that we can be together to really kind of think through what this means for us personally, what it means for the teams that we work in, and also what it means for the organizations that we represent here today. So I think this is a session that personally I have had so much value in preparing with our amazing speakers today. Everything they have said has kind of just hit a personal nerve for me and given me a little bit more strength in these really crazy times. So I'm hoping that what we'll be able to do today in the next hour will do the same for you and inspire us all to be able to support others to be more resilient. And you know, the dictionary definitions of resilience are all about how do we bounce back? How do we adapt? How do we make sure that we're not so brittle that when something changes that we shatter and we disintegrate? And that's important for us personally. It's important for us as an organization. So we want to tackle the gritty issues here today. My name's Laura Overton. I am on the executive board for advisory board for Online Educa and have been for the last 14 years. And I'm just passionate about workplace learning and what we as learning professionals can do in order to help our organizations be equipped and ready for change. And that sometimes means starting with us as well. So I'm hoping that you're really going to have a fantastic morning with us this morning and lots of questions, and we want to be able to adapt with you. So our first speaker is Dr. Barbara Fluge. You know, Barbara, your mobility research over the last, I think it's 25 years, isn't it, has kind of been investigating that individual and organizational resilience within organizations. But, you know, what I also love is the fact that you're doing work now with big organizations to help them do just that. So we'd like to really invite you and share with us your thoughts on this. So thank you. Join with me to welcome Barbara to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, welcome everyone. What I'd like you to do is, if it's okay for you, if you'd like to move a little bit more forward, it's fine. If not, we will be having an engaging part as well. So I'm really also looking forward to getting your feedback and your insights when we have after our two presentations, the Q&A sessions and the discussion. So resilience at work, what makes us move? Yes, I'm a Chief Services and Resilience Officer. I call it myself that, based on my corporate life experience, my experience in the startup, Silicon Valley startup, and in a couple of strategy consulting companies where I was traveling around the globe, what I really enjoyed a lot. So the physical part of mobility actually is the one I really enjoyed a lot, because this is how I learn, this is how I distill ideas, insights, and how I engage and collaborate with maybe some of you in the future, but with many, many in the past. So what is resilience? Let's first go into the definition here. The definition I base on my work about the triad of mobility. So resilience is a capacity of an individual to respond and even prosper from negative or positive stressful circumstances. So it's not only about going through obstacles, it's really about making something out of it, right? And what I would like you to do is, some of you already have a pen and a notepad or even the iPad or any kind of tablet. Just note down one incident that reminds you of that were negative or was an obstacle to you. Please keep that in mind or put it down, because we'll come back to that later. So resilient organizations have the same game, right? And the same objective, to overcome negative or even positive stressful circumstances. And resilience makes us move. That's my firm belief. And we see this little girl here. And when we look into children, how many times do they actually fall before they start to really stand up and be able to move? How many times? What do you think? Any guesses?
100,000?
No, it's about 178 times. So how often do organizations fail before they're standing up again? Would they wait 178 times? No. They would already struggle after the first, the second, or the third time, right? So, and it's about steering known and unknown consequences. So it's about looking into an incident, and an incident can have various different notions: economic, social, political, the pandemic, climate change, sudden incidents nobody actually dealt with or calculated with. And the risk to fall over, bend over as an organization to fail is pretty high. So how can we steer with these kind of consequences? So are resilient organizations the ones that demonstrate power to the outside, have a strong brand, are really powerful? I mean, big steps, footsteps they leave in the market? Are resilient organizations the one that live, and we heard the term a lot, agility, agile organizations being versatile? So I brought the 4 characteristics, what you see very often in the markets about agility. It's about sensing the taste of the consumer. It's about being performing, so high-performing companies, right? Very productive companies. It is about looking into the market conditions. It's about like putting everything under the microscope and therefore then assessing what the market wants. So, and that's the last one, it's about the market and the consumer satisfaction. What satisfies us? That when we sit at the hairdresser, right, that we're really like, oh, I like to have that brand, I like to have that product. Or as employees, I like to work for that company. It's really, it's fulfilling my expectations, right? My vision. So, but is that enough? What we also see very often in corporate life is my management is worried about sales and reach. So what is what I need to do better? And what we also see very often, that we turn back, or someone turns back, a colleague or a manager, and says, you know what, I know it why, but I'm not speaking up. Because the manager is so convinced about what should be the truth, what are the consequences. I know it, I sense it, but when I'm saying, I'm sensing it, my gut feeling tells me, I observed customer reactions, then a manager would say, you know what, prove it, name it, calculate it, tell me the numbers. So the sensing, resilient sensing, is not really a characteristic that's really welcome in an organization, except it goes into the mindfulness exercise in the morning. I was working for about 6.5 years for SAP on global scale. And yes, we had colleagues that trained this mindfulness every morning, but it was cut off from the operational activities. It was more about the personal, anti-stress exercises, what you also could do when you do your yoga session or meditation, right? So what means to really go into unspoken truths? Because organizations got blamed a lot these days, and also since last year, but already honestly for quite a number of years, to be slow. So the idea loading takes time. We also know, actually, I think maybe we recall some colleagues or managers that are in that situation where they say, oh my God, I hope the day is going over. And I hope, let's say, Christmas is coming, vacation is coming. And I had an executive management meeting with a large corporation in Switzerland. And one of the newly hired executives said, you know what, I have many colleagues, they're just calculated in 4 years. 4 years, because this is when retirement comes in. So, and that's, of course, not the way how you can build and expand your resilient status of your organization. Because the consequences is that you're losing your team. You're losing your team, you're losing the talents. An executive CIO asked me a couple of weeks ago, and he said, okay, our board management, they don't want to change. They don't want to really listen to the young talents. And I would add also the older, the silver talents are out there as well, right? And he said, what can I do? And I said, well, if they really resist to change, if they really resist to do anything to really embrace the talents in the organization, they will quit. I mean, they can just form a small team and just found a startup. Why should they wait for your board to be ready? You know? So the blaming is there, and so the question is, what is an organizational outlook to cope with that? I call it this the flying diver. It's the one to dive up and look into what the market is out there, the other kind of markets, so new customers, new trends, because we have enough invaders and disruptors in our traditional businesses anyway, even if we don't see them, but they actually harm our business already today. They actually already started it a couple of years ago, and you can observe that in the retail market, when you look at the number of shopping malls in the US that actually dropped already years ago, the ones that were beautifully crowded with consumers, so many actually had to close. And this didn't start yet with the pandemic. It actually started about 5 years ago already in the US. So my name is Barbara Flügge, and I founded Digital Value Creators because I wanted to have a 3-tier competence and skill level to be brought back to the organizations, to the corporate decision makers, but also anyone in the organization. And that's about crossing the business domain knowledge. It's about understanding disruptive technology. It's about building transformational leaders. And this is actually, yes, I founded that company with that name. I was really thinking a lot about the name Digital Value Creators. And then someone called me up and he said, you know what? 2017, there was an executive research company that actually also talked about digital value creators becoming the new competency skill set for leaders to lead change in an organization. And I said, okay, that's good. So I was glad that I took so much time to look into this name of the company. And what we actually do is, it's really a boutique consulting and tool company. We look not only into the performance part and preparation part of an organization, but we like to look into how a company and organization could diversify and multiply what it already has. So the heritage of an organization. So being it an expertise, being it a product, being it a service. And then empower and anchor it through the staff, so through the employees and the colleagues, despite the management and the leaders out there. So in 2018, I quit SAP. I was there for about 6.5 years. And I said to myself, I did so many projects on mobility, physical mobility and digital mobility, but we haven't seen really a lot of changes, right? When we look at the congestion jams in the cities, we have all these new technologies, we have IoT, and we can do so much more on smart data analytics, but what does it really mean to really change? And because my vision is to create viable, social, inclusive organizations that actually help to grow from within, so where they actually make use of all their assets and talents, and to actually serve the society, our ecosystems in the cities, in the regions, in the rural areas. So Mobility Moves Minds was actually created 2018 as a research project. When I quit that, I said, okay, what will I be doing in assessing what drives an organization? And what I created was a 3-tier, let's say, definition of mobility. We know all about physical mobility because we're here, and we know when we are not physically able to move. We know about digital mobility. This is actually when we are able to serve our clients digitally, not only just selling a furniture we produce online, but offering a service online to our consumers while they're waiting for the product to be shipped. That's digital mobility. But what is needed, it's what I call mental mobility. The psychologists call it cognitive flexibility. So there's an entire theory around that. Honestly, I didn't know it when I created this term, because I just wanted to look into what mentally means as to be prepared in the corporations. So Dr. Janice Ferris Armani, she's one of the supporters of Mobility Moves Minds, and she put it very beautifully. She said, it's about, we have so many successful business managers, but they still can misalign this connection and actually also fail to recognize what we could do in mobilizing our resources, so people, skills, competences, products, and our organizational structure. And what we did now, we worked for 2.5 years on Mobility Moves Minds. So I worked with colleagues and individuals, but also corporate leaders, startups, founders, freelancers, and organizations over 2.5 years. So I was interested in assessing their definition, but also their way of living resilience. And actually, so these are the contributors, because they actually helped me to propose and introduce a social business model. Because I wanted to see when you look into corporate life and you have someone who lost his job or her job, what happens to that person? So I'm working also since 2018 with a homeless community, an organization that focuses on bringing homeless people back into corporate life, right? And some say, okay, these are the most resilient people, right, you can find. So what makes us jump so that we avoid that our organizations flip over, so that they actually can pass over the storm? It might turn in a little bit light rain, but then actually they can implement predictive measures and look into how to pass over and to build and grow again. And this is a very good, I really like that image a lot, because what makes us jump and succeed when you think about yourself in your organization? Is it the manager who inspires you? Is it the colleagues? Is it a project that you do as a side job next to your daily business activities, right? And the point is, always a question is, who is in charge and what is possible? So, the findings of the 2.5 years is a resilient organizations consists of 7 pillars. Some of them we are all very familiar with, and these are, for example, the golden circle, right? So the why, the how, and the what the organization is there for. Others are the resilience management layer, so to look into how to organize corporate life so that actually resilience turns into a business asset, and actually also to build up what I call a resilience membrane. I hope I pronounce it well in English. For me, it's like a Gore-Tex jacket you put on when it's windy, when it's raining. It covers you, it shields you. And guess what? The resilience membrane, these are the people. Because companies are made of people, right? So if a resilient person, let's say, leads an organization, you can expect more on positive consequences than a non-so-resilient leader, for example, who might fail because the person doesn't know how to cope with an incident or with how to actually deal with the impact. So the point is, the dilemma is there are many. There are many managers. Sometimes we think there are too many managers that don't move, that actually have this, holding us, keeping us away from our desired projects, even the clients we like to work with, right? And I think many of you experienced it as well. I did it several times, right? I was either too fast, I was too innovative, I was not really comfortable to fit, let's say, the comfort zone of my manager, right? So the point is, we could actually ignore them, or we could look into how to help managers that have sometimes a very great expertise in the market to transform, to look into how to become a more resilient leader, right? And so jump and succeed, when you look at this image, the question is always, we cannot have one specific benchmark to look into what is the height, what is the distance a manager should jump, right? Because it's very individual. I mean, for me, jumping high or going high in the elevation right here in a mountain area would be critical because I'm afraid of heights. Others would say, okay, I just can do very, very little. But that's a matter of equity, right? So that we provide everything so that the person is able to jump higher to the desired stage. So what we actually did was we looked into the wheel of incidents. So we looked into all the different kind of incidents that the corporate organizations could be faced with and how actually it could be resolved, right? Not resolved to delete the incident or just to move it away. I mean, it's there, right? I mean, we have all these incidents. We cannot just ignore them, but the question is, how are we dealing with them? So, and one element is, of course, in the mental mobility part is to deal with empathy, excitement, enthusiasm. So to bring that back in, right? So that's a very untouchy skill set, right? It actually is, on the other side, it's a connector. It helps us to connect the physical and the digital mobility. Because when you design a product and you feel the empathy of your future clients, you design it differently than when you have a 15-minute Scrum meeting and you just say, I look into a feature. So it's about putting yourself into the E3 status of your organization and of your clients, right? So the resilient organizations, they cultivate their resilience membrane. So what we did actually, we looked into a method to actually focus on the mental mobility part and actually cultivate that. And one of the elements, we don't have a lot of time here today, but one of the elements is the concept of sovereignty. So how firm am I in fighting for my project? Am I comfortable with non-comforting zones, right? Can I live my principles even actually it's against the core principles of my manager, for example. And what we did is we built what we call the ABC. When you Google it, you will find a 3-letter ABC resilience. What we actually did, we went through 26 elements of, so we took actually the alphabet, and I'm always saying not only Google has an alphabet, we also have one. So we literally investigated in 26 brands. You can imagine R like Rolex, S like Starbucks, or yeah, whatever the letter is you would like to look at. We did it for 26, and we looked into how to actually enhance the products through mental mobility, through a creative mindset to come to the next stage of organization. So to really cultivate this resilience membrane by inviting employees from different levels in. And this is actually what we did. So we started to work on these resilience workshops. And just 2 very small examples, but very important examples, I'm a little bit over time now, if it's okay, is Hannah. So Hannah is a startup founder for sustainable energy in Nigeria. She painted resilience like that. It's a bus that has photovoltaic panels on top of that. Then we have Nebo from Serbia. He said, for me, resilience in corporate life is to really have like a family environment where the ball is hitting the wall, but it doesn't crash. It doesn't deform. It still stays there. So I fight for what I'm in, right? So, and actually what we did here was we went through the ABC to actually identify what makes a company more resilient by connecting the physical and the digital mobility through the creative, the resilient mindset. And so when you note it down, what the incident is that you encountered in your corporate life, we can look at that and actually run this test about how to also transform that from not so comforting or from an incident point of view into a positive outcome. And this is just one example. So we did that for an organization in the US. It's a coaching business. So we looked into the obstacles and actually assessed these obstacles and actually transformed them into a benefit, into an advantage to make that company grow again and build again, because it was very static. It actually lost businesses through the pandemic. We also have a survey here, and I'm also happy to spread and distribute the QR code and the link. It's about brand resilience, so your favorite brand, your corporate brand. Would be great if you could take part of that. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Barbara, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
There's so many things in there, Barbara, that you've given us. But there are some amazing principles that you've shared with us as well. And the fact that resilience isn't just an initiative about personal development and kind of personal strength. It's actually how we build that into our organization. And I love what you also said about the fact that resilience is also closely linked to mobility and equity and diversity and competitive advantage. And it's unique to each organization as well. So what I'd like you to do is maybe note a few questions that you've got for Barbara, because we'd like to come back to that. What if I can invite you back after Irina?
Yes.
But if I may, can I just borrow your idea? And I'm going to ask you to kind of tap into your creative mode at the moment and maybe draw yourself a little picture about what does resilience look like for you? Is it, a practical thing like Barbara's examples? Is it an animal? Is it, what kind of image captures your definition personally of resilience? So it's really important for us to own this, isn't it, really, for us to become resilient. So Barbara, thank you. I'm going to invite you back later. And everyone, just have a little draw at the moment. And I'm going to ask Irina to come up, and we will give you just a moment to note your questions and maybe draw down what resilience looks like for you. So for me, I think if I could draw, a resilience would be almost like a trampoline. Sort of like if you go down, you think, oh my goodness, I'm going to fall. Am I going to break something? But resilience actually, that opportunity bounces you back higher and perhaps potentially gives you more energy to do something different and to try again the next time, and even make a skill out of hitting the trampoline. So that's just a little one from me. I would like to introduce you to our next speaker, Irina, because I'm loving what Irina is doing, and she's really taking this personally, taking these imageries personally in her organization, and has really inspired me as a result of our short interactions that we've had in preparation for this. So Irina, do you want to take up this concept of the image here? And you've got your microphone, and I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Laura, and thank you so much, Barbara. And hello to the audience, and be prepared for the change of tack and the total change of perspective. If you imagine yourself being flying as a drone, and what Barbara gave us a very comprehensive helicopter view, organization, corporate culture, and where individuals and resilience fit into it. And I would like us to fly the same drone, but swoop into what Barbara called people membrane. So what actually is resilience in terms of people, how it actually happens, how we can help people to become more resilient. And I developed the curiosity about this subject this particular year, probably not surprising. And I would like to share with you today my find, which I think a gem of a find. It is about what resilience is, or maybe, And I would like to share with you the model, resilience dynamics, and the set of tools that can be used to develop different levels of resilience, which is called Resilience Engine. It's a licensed product, I should mention that. But I'm here to tell you today, not about it, it's not a sales pitch, I genuinely believe that it's a fantastic tool. And the reasons that I think that, and attracted me to that, is that for the first time I discovered something which has a set of tools, practical hands-on tools, to develop something as a skill and a model and a concept that supports that. And all that is based on 10-year research of resilience in organizations and people who are in employment. So, when we introduced that subject in our organization, we introduced that as a development opportunity for employees, as a training opportunity. And I ran it as a series of workshops, for a group. It's for specific reason that Barbara and Laura mentioned and asked you to think of what resilience means for you, and either draw an image or maybe think of a metaphor. Because resilience is very individual. It's individual to a person, to a team, and to organization. Everyone will have different perception of what resilience is. And that's why I put a blank placeholder. So if you have a little bit of time to maybe reflect on what your perception of representation of resilience is, would you like to share some of your images or metaphors with us? What would you put personally in this blank placeholder?
Actually, I'll pop down with my microphone.
You can just shout if you want.
Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. So first of all, I resonated so much with your image of resilience. Mine would be a basketball, I think, kind of bouncing back up and down all the time. Alternatively, would be a highly flexible tree. But yeah, that's just a couple of images. Yeah, resilience is a good thing.
Any others?
Okay, so we've got basketball and bouncy ball.
So for me, resilience is, a picture of surfer going with waves. And every time you don't know which wave will come and how strong it would be. But you have this enthusiasm to go through it.
Fantastic image, and that fits in what Barbara mentioned about mobility. Yeah, it's movement. Yeah.
Any others? Oh. Okay, I've got a bit of help for the back row now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. For me, resilience is more like a rubber band, because no matter how much pressure you put it under or stretch it, then you can go back to the way it was. That's my concept around resilience.
Thank you. So it's an idea of elasticity and ability to stretch, but come back to original form. Yeah, to keep the shape and identity. Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Any other metaphors or suggestions from anyone else? Okay, all right. So thank you for that. Yeah. So when we started our workshops, this is how we started. Yeah, we want people to explore their own perception of resilience. Yeah, of course there are definitions, and of course there are theories and research. But what is important for people to connect, and really, if they want to say, I want to be more resilient, it understand what it means for you at this moment in time. Yeah. Why the subject surfaced and received so much attention lately? You probably can tell me yourself, your personal experience. Resilience has always been linked to change, but recent experience showed us that we're faced with unprecedented changes, which happened at a speed, at a pace. This is not something new, but it's amount of change, the pace at which changes have been happening. And also an additional factor is that it doesn't seem to be end in sight. Yeah, it seems to be continuous process when we ask to adjust very quickly to constant changing environment, and it seems to be endless. Yeah, this moment is going indefinitely. So I cannot just hold on to say, well, okay, I can manage for another 6 months, but then, yeah, so we do not have then. That then keeps moving all the time. In terms of remote working, I mean, we'll have individual experiences, but there is some commonality. From the point of view of organizations, that intersection of technology and the workforce created new environment. We call it hybrid at the moment, but it presented its own challenges. Yeah, how to continue to engage with people, how to ensure people engage with organization in these new circumstances, and how to maintain growth, because this is what learning and development, professional development is about. This is my team, responsible for that. How do we maintain growth at a distance, remotely? So, okay. So when we have people come into the sessions, so we started with, like we did today, with you exploring the individual metaphors. Normally at the training session, you'll set learning goals and objectives. Okay, well, I didn't at the time, because I wanted people to set their own goals, to think about what it means to them. It's not an easy thing to do when you think about your own resilience, but what we discovered, the commonality, was the perceived need to be more resilient. And there was a gap, between what is my resilience, what is it I can do, and what is expected of me today. So because of that gap, people found themselves in the workshop, working on their own resilience. Now, I put a point here about helpful advice, and this for a reason, because when I started looking, well, if I want to build up my own resilience, what does it mean? How can I do it? And of course, you do Google search, you try to get some books and publications, and there's a lot of there. But it's kind of about, well, well-being, engage in exercise, keep yourself fit, maintain optimistic view on life, healthy eating. And I thought, well, you know what? I don't disagree with that. It's all very valid advice, but I'm so tired. I just cannot engage in any of these activities. I don't know if you can relate to this experience when you kind of motivated, say, okay, all right, I'll start my new fitness regime. I'll start a yoga class. Every Tuesday evening after work, I'll start a yoga class. And you go for a bit, but then it kind of fizzles out because you kind of feel like you're running out of steam. So what we discovered, that in order to engage with this helpful advice, people need to have a minimum capacity to do that. If you are so exhausted and you feel so overwhelmed and fatigued, any suggestion of starting a new activity, even if it's beneficial for you at the end, seems too much. And this is the starting point in terms of building resilience. You work not on resilience itself yet. You work on creating capacity, and not even creating capacity, but exploring what is my capacity for change. Any change is at that moment in time. So how do you do that? How do you explore your own capacity? How resilient are you at the moment? How more resilient can you be if circumstances demand that of you? And this is how you start. You start with a simple, what I call lens. If you feel tired, fatigued, exhausted, then what is it that drains your energy? What activities, daily or whatever you do, relationships, what drains your energy? Or what gives you energy? And actually answer a simple question: what are your energy levels at today, at this moment in time? And we talk about all sorts of energy. It's mental, physical, emotional. It's a simple thing to do, and it does not require any more resources of you. It's just simply noticing. You don't dedicate time to do it. You just go through your daily tasks, and at the back of your mind, I feel okay. Oh, I'm really low. I feel tired. Actually, I felt really great at this moment in time. So simple noticing. Don't do anything anymore. And this is where you start. The second step is, once you notice things, make sense of them. yeah? Different ways. You may see, I discovered I have more energy drainers than energy givers. Why is that then? Yeah? In a particular activity, what is it that drains my energy exactly? Like somebody said to me, well, every morning when I open my laptop and there's a new flurry of emails coming in, and I just feel, wow, yeah? So what it is about this incoming traffic that drains your energy, yeah? And you discover things. You discover it's a pattern of repeated activity where there's no solution. Yeah, you're in a loop. Yeah, and maybe other things there. Once you learned about it, then you make a decision what to do with this information. Do you make a change? Do you continue as it is? If continue as it is, I continue feeling tired. Do I want to feel tired? I don't want to feel tired. Yeah. So that's the starting point. You start with the energy. And this is a great way to get into building your resilience because there's no judgment. No one, including you, places a judgment on you. I should be doing something and I'm not doing something. None of that. Just how you are at this moment in time. Okay. When we had a conversation in our group about that, obviously, how do energy-giving activities, what they are? And we're talking about rest. And here I would like to share with you the book which I find absolutely brilliant. It's called The Art of Rest. Yeah, and it's based on a global survey. People were asked to name what they find particularly restful activities. And I put them here in descending order. And I did it deliberately, yeah? Because one of the recommendations for people in terms of well-being and building resilience is to engage with mindfulness. Personally, I found it very difficult to do for many reasons, right? And one of them, that point of view was shared at one of the LPA webinars, which I attended recently, supported by research, that actually mindfulness, when you need to concentrate on how you're feeling at this moment in time, or on a particular element around you, yeah, requires a lot of cognitive energy. So if your energy bank's already depleted, engaging with mindfulness does not help. It just doesn't happen. And if people tried and they don't continue with it, they think I failed. So you end up with a sense of failure rather than help. Yeah, and that's why the suggestion is start with your energy levels. Very simply, no judgment on yourself, just how you're today, energy level, energy-wise. Yeah. Interesting, anything particular of interest you notice in that list that jumps at you that you didn't expect?
I was expecting some interaction with other people.
Yeah, like social element,
yeah,
like meeting friends element. And yeah, okay.
So I noticed the one I want to be alone, but it could also be I want to be with someone I can share
yes,
my feelings with.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So we'll add that to what's on our list.
Anyone else notice something in that list which is unexpected, or you wonder something should be there and it isn't, apart from social element? Doing nothing in particular, does it resonate with you, or you find it's not restful? Yeah, okay. You wouldn't include that as a form of rest. Okay. Any other comments from anyone?
I'm surprised that reading is number one, because I would think that would require cognitive energy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Laura, one more comment. Sorry. Is David? Yeah.
Well, it goes actually also in the direction of reading. Sometimes I feel like if I do something totally different to what I usually do, it's like relaxing. For example, if something would think that doing a vacation and relaxing is really powerful and gives you energy, but mostly it's like doing something totally different and active, and that relaxes more, and you feel like more inspired if you come back. So that would be kind of missing. It can be cleaning the bathroom or I don't know what, but something that totally takes you out of what you're usually doing or what you're doing all day long.
Yes, thank you for that. Okay. Interesting. And I think what we see here is, I'm hearing here, is that doing something interesting out of the ordinary, out of pattern, yeah, and new activity is stimulating, yeah, and that is an energy giver, yeah. Doing something mundane, repetitive, cleaning, maybe not, right? Reading, yes, it's an interesting one. I must admit, personally, reading is not one for me either. Because I do find that sometimes I'm too tired to read, yeah? But it depends upon what kind of reading. If you read something which stays on the surface of my brain, I find it restful. If I read something which requires a lot of me, that's not restful at that moment in time. Social element is interesting as well, because in the book, at least research says, that activities that we enjoy are not necessarily restful. And meeting with friends, yeah, and going out and having a great time is very enjoyable, but you may feel tired afterwards, yeah? You need some rest afterwards, yeah? Doing nothing in particular, for some people, restful, but actually it's quite stressful for many people, yeah? We're so used to being in this kind of a do one thing after another mode. Then all of a sudden, forcibly, say to yourself, I sit here doing nothing, it's quite stressful. So not necessarily restful. So what I want you to think about here is in terms of building resilience, starting with energy lens, yeah? And having a look at activities that you find restful, which will give you energy, yeah? That's just the lens, yeah? If I enjoy doing something great, it may be an energy giver, but I still need rest as well, yeah? Interestingly enough, that I want to be alone is quite high on the list, yeah? And that means not just being miserable and lonely, it's doing activity like cycling. A lot of people find cycling very energetic, but it's very restful. It gives the mind a break. Walking, and there is difference between walking in nature and walking in urban settings, yeah? One is more restful than the other. So we're starting with energy, we're looking at what gives us energy and what drains our energy, okay? And this is the set of tools. It's just I give you the little sample of tools that can be used to build up resilience. They're combined together, and this is called resilience engine. There are 3 cogs, and we started in the middle. We started in creating a space for adaptive capacity by releasing a little bit of energy that allow you to work on your adaptive capacity. We all have internal resources, and that's what makes us feel restful or stimulated or excited, yeah? If the adaptive capacity, the energy levels are so low, extremely low, down to nil, down to the ground, you have no means to engage with your internal resources, yeah? And if what you're doing doesn't make sense to you, or doesn't matter, there's no alignment with the goal, then the first cog, the cogs don't work together. They need to work together to give you that capacity to adapt, to change, yeah? So behind all this, there's a set of tools, practical hands-on tools that can be used to ensure that cogs work together. Very unscientifically, I call this resilience tools toolkit a choo-choo train. And this train takes you around the resilience dynamic curve. This is traditional representation of resilience, which are linked to negative, critical, stressful events of our life as a one-off thing, and is based on deficiency, yeah? I'm not resilient enough, yeah? But what is interesting here, that resilience dynamic present that resilience as not a static state, it's a dynamic state. People fluctuate between the levels of resilience. And it's not just enough to cope or break even or bounce back. This is another traditional definition of resilience, to push through, to bounce back. It is possible to build your resilience to take you to a ultimately much higher level, which is here it's called breakthrough. Yeah? And this is the state of resilience where no matter what life throws at us, we remain resourceful and we remain confident in our ability to change. Yeah? Essentially, the ability to change is different depending upon where in this curve you are. If you go to Resilience Engine website, it's just resilienceengines.com, there is a self-assessment tool, very quick, which you can do to see where you are in resilience, and a very good explanation of that. Yeah, but don't get hung up on that. And this is the great benefit of this model. Wherever you are at resilience curve at this moment in time, if you think I'm not doing very well, yeah, the chances are the next moment in a different set of circumstances, just going from work to home, your resilience will shift. Yeah. So the reason why I got attracted to this particular model as well is because it's a very optimistic point of view. It's dynamic and optimistic. Yeah, wherever you are, you can move. The set of tools people can use individually or at the team level, organizational level, yeah, will allow you to navigate between levels of resilience. It is possible to get stuck, and that's a bit of a worry when it happens, but you don't have to. Yeah, and it is doable and it's feasible. And you start at a very kind to yourself point. Just what are my energy levels are today? That's it. It's very simple. So these are some links, but resilienceengines.com will take you to all these places. I want to leave with you some of the images that people at the workshop shared with me as well. And we have a sports analogy as well with cricket. Yeah, something like a spring. Yeah, it's called a slinky. Yeah, sense of direction and the river. Yeah, so resilience dynamic, resilience engines approaching resilience from the perspective of fullness of the capacity rather than deficiency of the capacity, to keeping your river full enough all the time to prepare you to whatever may happen. Yeah, and this is what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Barbara to come back onto the stage as well. And while we're doing that, I just wanted to let you know that we were hoping to have a third contribution in this session today from Karim from Asker Novell, isn't it? And she was unable to come. And it was ironic that when we were preparing for this session, we felt that we had to have a bit of a plan B because we weren't sure what was going to be happening. And Karim was actually going to be sharing on how to actually roll out plans. And you'll be able to get her hints and tips, which she has given us here. But can I just flag a couple of things that Corinne has said that's really linked into what you were talking about, because she was talking about rolling out a global resilience program for the whole of the organization that she was working with. And, you know, looking at digital, looking at different ways of doing webinars, connecting people, different blends about looking at these issues. But then her learnings were so in line with you practically. The first one was about the buy-in for senior leaders to this kind of initiative. And actually, Barbara, you gave us some brilliant concepts to grab the attention of senior leaders. Your resilience is not just about a personal issue. This is about business, kind of focus. And she said also, you need to be able to deliver in local languages if you're working on globally. And that really resonated with what, for me, Irina and Barbara were saying, that this resilience has to be personal. So therefore, as learning professionals, how do we make that personal? And that might be language, but also you were flagging, how do we set our own goals within that to make it personal? Practically, you know, resilience is about feeling, it's about emotional. So let's not just bounce everyone with loads of text, pictures. things that evoke emotion, particularly if we're using digital. That was really important. Curating content. I know that the resilience engine has done that, but how do we curate content so that it works together to help people build their own picture of resilience? So that was really important. Be practical, ladies. Thank you. You helped us communicate, talk about this as well, and provide learnings throughout the period that you're focusing on. So you might have a focus on this, but don't just do a one-off. This is an ongoing process. So I think, Irina, if she'd been here, it would have really complemented practically some of the things that you were saying. Now we have a few minutes left for questions. Does anyone have a question based on the picture you drew, the challenge that you got that Barbara set us to say, let's make this personal? Has anyone got any questions that we'd like to kind of dig into in the last few minutes to make this real for you? Okay, so Barbara.
What I would like to add is, because when we worked in this 2.5 years about resilience, of course, pandemic wasn't there yet, right? When I decided to look into resilience from a corporate perspective. And when you turn now into your organization, very often, of course, the cause for looking into building resilience, the first answer would be the pandemic. So what we actually said is, let's have an incident analysis. So let's look into what, you might start, or your management might start with, okay, it was the pandemic who hit us hard, because we cannot sell, we cannot really reach our clients, or we have our products being stumbled up in Ningbo or somewhere in China or in other areas because of the logistics ripple effects, right? So, and then really rewinding from there and looking back, actually it's a retrospective exercise to look into what was really the cause that led to that moment of not being able to act in time, because very often it's reaction time. But companies that are resilient, actually, they buy time beforehand and build up this time, let's say, storage, right? It's like a resilience storage what you build to consume from. That's also on the incident and on the energy, the battery power, what you talked about, Irina, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what the resilience dynamic engine points out to, that there's a high level of resilience. Then actually high level of resilience means preparing factors that ensure success. Resilience in traditional sense is reactionary to events. When we're talking about building resilience now, we're talking about creating conditions. When you create conditions for yourself or for organization, for your team, where you have greater chances to succeed. And we reach the stage when whatever happens, that waves that crash, your analogy with the springboard, the crashing waves do not crush you or hijack you or the situation. I probably should say that when we introduced this particular approach to resilience, building resilience is a very practical approach. It was done as a series of workshops. It doesn't have to be. It can be a coaching opportunity, or it can be just a concept that runs behind in the organization, like a background, and feeds the decisions and actions that the organization takes. So it's very open, it's very flexible. The only condition is if you are interested and you would like to implement something like that, this particular tool, you do have to have accredited to use that.
Barbara, Irina, thank you so much. Before you go, I'm going to ask you to give a little bit of thinking moment. One tip that you would like to leave this audience with to build resilience in the workplace. I'm going to give you a quick moment because I'd like to pick up on your analogy about the surf as well. I've used that a lot in preparing learning function for change in the future. We don't necessarily know when our organization is going to need to go into new modes of learning, but we ourselves can prepare. So we can prepare to learn how to balance on that board and be able to catch the wave when it comes in. So for me, preparation before we need to change is going to be really a really critical one. So that's my tip. I'm giving you guys just a tiny bit of thinking time. Irina, your quick tip that we can take away.
Just take notice of your energy levels, yeah, and be kind to yourself and give yourself credit for how resilient you have been already, because you realize it now that you might have been on the whoosh line when the circumstances were hard and you triumphed over them. So we are resilient. Yeah, it's just realizing how resilient we are, where it's coming from, and start with energy levels, how you are today, how your energy levels are today.
Thank you. And Barbara?
Well, I could give a very easy answer and say, okay, let's look at the book, Mobility Moves Minds. I think one of the recommendations I would like to give is really, as I know how it is to get, let's say, pressured in a resilient environment, especially a non-so-resilient environment in corporate life, is to look out, is to look out really for others out there, not necessarily in your business unit or others. So, because to assess the resilience level of someone who will help you in your corporation, that's one of the parts of resilience management, what we said, what needs to be implemented to really turn it into a positive, into a benefit, right, for your organization.
Excellent.
So watch out and start
it goes
talking
beyond
about
ourselves.
It goes beyond
ourselves.
and it's
Absolutely.
contextual.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you are in and what the situation is, right? Yeah.
Ladies, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Before we say official thank you, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who've participated in the session this afternoon. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Do come back here in the pavilion later on this afternoon, 4:15, where we're going to be closing up in a unique online educal way, the kind of work-based kind of element of this. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's an hour of relaxing and reflecting and just kind of pulling ourselves together before we face either the bar or the transport home. So do come back and join us here in the pavilion, and in the meantime have a great lunch and make sure you log your views on this session on the app, and please join me in thanking Irina and Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Laura.
much, guys.
Thank you.